Hi, Nick Huston here for Gotham Sound and Communications. Today I am joined in the studio by Glenn Sanders from Zaxcom. Welcome, Glenn.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here.
Thanks for being here. We're also joined by this lovely cart setup, and I want to acknowledge our silent mixer, Brian, from our rental department. He's one of our rental amazing genius guys. So Glenn, there's a whole cart of stuff here. What are we showing off today?
Well, really what I want to show is sort of our whole ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the past, we brought in individual pieces of gear, and we've talked about that. And, you know, while we have talked about the capability of everything put together, I think it's really important now, especially with the introduction of Nova 2, to actually have it all together and really physically show what kind of cart you could put together with Zaxcom gear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, what we have is a Nova 2,
Yep.
and that's on the second shelf.
Okay.
That's the mixer recorder, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the ARIA control surface. ARIA is a 8, 12, or 16 fader control surface for our Zaxcom recorders.
So we've got this is the ARIA 8 and the 4, so we've got 12 channels.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if the cart was bigger, we could have easily put another module on,
Sure.
and they just plug in and you get more faders.
Right.
And we'll talk about that going forward.
Uh-huh.
So aside from that, I mean, you don't see a rack of receivers here.
Right.
Because the receivers are actually inside the Nova. So if you look at the overall cart and the weight of the cart, the Zaxcom gear on this cart really accounts for about 10 pounds.
Right. So this is an old PSC Euro cart. So it's got the battery built in. We've got the distro on it. And so I did this earlier, but I am not a strong man and I can lift that pretty easily. So seemingly like gone are the days of needing 3 people to lift a cart up the stairs if you were to go with something like this. And this is configured as is for 8 channels of wireless, and you could easily add in another 8.
Well, that's right. And I think that it's interesting to keep in mind that with 10 pounds of gear, you don't need a 50 or 100 pound cart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can have something that is much lighter weight, and obviously it doesn't have to be very wide or big. So you're going to be able to take this cart or a cart with Zaxcom gear into places where you're not going to go with a lot of rack mount gear that's going to basically give you a 200 pound cart.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very advantageous that way. The other interesting thing about all the gear we have on the cart is that the current consumption of the Zaxcom gear is approximately 1.2 amps. That's mixer recorder, receivers, and the tablet, the Nova Touch.
Right.
So, you know, you're not having to have a 100 amp battery. You know, you could simply have, you know, a little 20 amp battery and go, you know, 16 hours on one charge. So there's a really big advantage in terms of power consumption with our gear. And you might look at this and you might say, okay, you know, I don't see a lot of gear here. What does this really do? And the answer is it does everything and more. You know, certainly we have our ZaxNet remote control. So it's doing timecode distribution to all the body packs. It's doing control of the body packs so that we can remote control the gain of the body packs from the mixer. You know, in fact, the trim knobs on the mixer can be assigned directly to control the preamps in the body packs.
Right.
And, you know, I just want to emphasize how really important that is. You know, I mean, just, you know, it's so traditional in terms of taking a microphone and properly matching the microphone's dynamic range to the A to D inside the body pack. I mean, there is absolutely no substitute for doing that. If you don't do that, you're leaving dynamic range on the table no matter what system you have. So that's a big thing for us to be able to remote control the gain. And with this system, it flows simply from the panel through the mixer recorder, through ZaxNet to the packs, and basically, you know, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's as if it's a local preamp.
Yeah. So some people might ask why the Nova 2 is on that bottom shelf and not readily available. And I want to highlight that there's this tablet here that has Nova Touch, and that's new to us. So tell us what we can do with this.
Sure. Nova Touch is basically a GUI, a touch screen control for basically every function inside Nova 2. So not only do you get a chance to see your meters in a very big way and see the track names in those meters, you've got your running time code, you've got the ability to route anything you want to route. I mean, for instance, if I go into the main menu, I can route outputs, I can route tracks, I can route my headphone mix. I mean, basically, it's very, very capable of doing that. And most importantly, we have metadata entry available. You can enter metadata directly through the touch screen, or you can use a separate keyboard, which can be wired or wireless, and basically type in the data that way. If I wanted to change something, I can simply touch it and it'll bring up the edit node and I can do it directly. So it really takes care of all of the things that you might want to do by having the recorder, basically, right in your face. So you can put it out of the way and just have the touch screen give you all the information that you need that's relevant and important for your current scene.
Got it. So but basically, between the Nova Touch and the Aria 8, you can control anything on the Nova that you could possibly need to do.
I believe probably 98% of the things are there. There might be a few things in the ENG setup menu that don't come up, but all the routing for tracks, inputs, headphone, the record enables, I mean, they're all there.
Yeah.
So, this way you just glance over here and you've got it all on a big screen. And this runs on any PC or Mac. And the unit we have today is a Microsoft Surface Go, which brand new is about $300. So it's really very cost efficient.
Got it.
So.
And then, of course, on the Aria, you've got a big record button, which is very important.
Yes, we totally believe in record and stop. And you've also got slate, talkback, solo buttons, PFL buttons. I mean, everything you need to do the job is there. So Nova, with 16 recordable tracks and 22 inputs, is more than capable enough to give you, a recorder that you can use on virtually any show, because it just has so much capability. And just having all of that in this tiny package is just crazy. But if we also look at it, we do have the recording and the packs, which of course we've talked about before.
Yep.
And the packs are receiving the time code through Zaxnet. If you want them to, they can go into record or stop, with the recorder.
Yep.
And as I said before, you're controlling the gain. So having Zaxnet, control everything gives you a single system.
Yep.
That really, really just is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So let's highlight just a couple of the transmitters that we talked about, because these are probably the three main ones. There are other ones. There's a plug-on. There's a couple of.
Correct.
There's actually a couple of plug-ons. There's a flexible one, but these are the three main ones that you're going to use in film and TV.
Exactly.
So you see, we've got this very tiny one, the ZMT4, right, which replaces the ZMT Phantom and the ZMT regular. They're all in
ZMT3.
one. ZMT3 and ZMT unleaded.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I don't think a car has been made that takes leaded gas since the 80s, but that's fine. And then we've got the ZMT4X,
yes.
Right, with the super long battery life.
16 hours of battery life on that.
And then this is the new TRX LA5.
Correct.
With longer battery life, AA batteries, which I'm a fan of, even though it's wasteful. It just makes me feel comfortable.
Well, you can use rechargeables.
It's true, I could. But it also has very wide tuning range, right? It goes all the way up to 663, is that right?
Yeah, it'll go to the maximum frequency we use here. It actually can go to 700. Of course, that's not legal here, but when we sell it in Europe and different places, the actual range that it'll do is really extended from what we used to have. It actually, not that we sell it this way at this point, but it actually does go from I know they're going to hate me for saying it, but 470 to 700, but it's FCC licensed, I believe, for, I think actually we are 470 to like 650. So it's got good range to it. And as we expand receiver bandwidth, we'll open that up.
Right, got it. So Glenn, one of the things that's important to people these days, that we're seeing is more and more important, is the ability to go from bag to cart and back and forth pretty quickly. So with the Zaxcom setup, if let's say the Nova 2 was in a bag and that was your bag setup, what would you need to do to get it cart ready? Like how many connections are there and all that stuff?
Well, very few. Basically, in the situation we have here, there's only 2 connections. There's power, and you have RS-422 that goes to the ARIA.
Okay.
That's it. I think it's interesting when you think about the whole concept of going from bag to cart, because you can definitely bring the 8-fader panel with you. I mean, if you look at what's out there, nothing is going to just drop into a sound bag like the ARIA 8. And ARIA 8, and I know we've talked about it, but it's a block of aluminum. It's heavier, so that you're able to basically have a really good feel when you're mixing. The faders are magnetic, they're sealed, so the longevity of those faders is going to be terrific in the field.
Yeah.
I think the concept of going from bag to cart is something, or vice versa, is something that we designed in from day one. Because if you look at Nova and the fact that it contains the internal receivers, you're not dealing with multiple receivers, you're not dealing with rack mount products, you're not dealing with a lot of cables. Literally, it's just take the Nova, plug in the power, drop it in the bag, and you're pretty much ready to go.
Right.
You might add an IFB transmitter, or you might use the Zaxnet transmitter with some of our Zaxnet IFB receivers. But generally speaking, you've got the smallest, lightest sound bag available. The thing that I think that you need to consider when you look at this is how much kit as a sound mixer do you want to own? If you own a Zaxcom Nova, you've got your bag kit all set up. You're not going out there and buying a separate recorder, separate receivers, and you've got your cart set up and you've got your bag set up. With Zaxcom, literally, you could have half the amount of gear and be able to accomplish either of those things. The nice part is, because if you do want backup gear, you've got the Nova. If you wanted to have a Nova on the cart, you wanted to have a Nova in the bag, if something were to go wrong for any reason, you've got that hot backup ready, and it's the same thing,
Yeah, same small package, but getting...
Right, exactly. And another thing that I really want to point out is the way we do our wireless receivers. In fact, if you hand me this guy.
Sure.
So this is the RX-8, and we talked about RX-8 previously, but just to go over it real quick, it's got 8 channels of receiver, and those receivers basically instantly plug in and unplug. I'm going to make sure I pull out the one that has the retaining screw out.
Yeah.
So this is 4 channels of receiver. So you're able to take this or the Nova and run with 4 channels or 8 channels. So if you're looking at utilizing your gear in a way that is most effective, in other words, for any job, if you just need 8 channels of wireless, you plug in your receivers, you're ready to go. If you only need 4, well, then you can use the module somewhere else. So you're able to, A, have instant redundancy, because if something were to go wrong, you're instantly able to change the receiver, and you're able to utilize it on a job or multiple jobs any way you like, including renting it out, as opposed from having something where you've got 8 or 16 channels of wireless in a single package.
Yeah.
That's very, very limiting, and certainly not a good use of money or resources.
Yeah.
So, the way we've done it allows you to minimize your gear footprint between your cart and your bag.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient.
Yep, absolutely. And then, not to mention that everybody can have a body pack recorder running around. So if you are doing reality,
right.
Even if you have this centralized platform to record everything, people run off with a separate camera, it's always recording.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's kind of funny that we just we put in what we call party mode in the system, because the way we have it set up, you can tweak, you know, all the parameters of the transmitters from a single Nova, but in party mode, you're able to basically dial in to any transmitter to make any change you like. The point is, in party mode, if you're going to listen to this guy or that guy, you know, it's not affecting the frequencies of the transmitter. Because one of our features is that you automatically can change the transmitter frequency just by changing the receiver frequency inside the Nova. So we allow you to disconnect that so that you can do a reality show very, very effectively with multiple sound bags and multiple Novas and multiple channels of wireless. Just to get back to something you said earlier, there's a point that with the Zaxcom system, you know, we have 16 tracks in the recorder. You know, maybe you have a situation where, you know, very infrequently, once a year, you had 17 tracks. I mean, not typical at all.
Right.
But if you did, you would be fine because you've got a full bandwidth recording inside the pack. You know, so you've actually got that 17th track, and you can certainly mix them together because there are 22 inputs inside the Nova. So if anyone has any, you know, issues that they don't have enough tracks with the Zaxcom system, you have effectively as many tracks as you have transmitters. You know, and the other thing about that is, you know, we've got what's called re-record and audition, so that, you know, you don't need to run a backup. You know, having 2 recorders on the cart, you know, it's very wasteful. You have a lot of power, you have a lot of weight, you know, that you're adding, and a lot of expense. You know, by using the wireless packs as your backup, multi-track backup, you know, you're covered, and nothing can substitute for the fact that the packs have that recording that is free from any kind of dropout. You know, dropout, any interference that would cause a problem. You know, there's no system that can do what this does in terms of guaranteeing you that you have your transmission, you know, 100% no matter what happens. Even if the cart were to lose power in the middle of the shot,
transmitters would still go.
The transmitters are still running. Yeah.
And the other thing, so the Nova 2 is new, just started shipping a couple weeks ago. You wanted to highlight the output busing on that because that's a new feature on there, right?
Right. Yeah, the output buses between the Nova 1 and the Nova 2, we now have 2 more output buses. So we actually have 8 output buses inside Nova 2, and we've also expanded the I/O capability of the box by allowing the receiver AES connections to be brought out to the outside world. And what that did for us, it actually gave us a tremendous amount of extra capability. If you do not have internal receivers inside Nova 2, you actually have 16 AES inputs. If you have the receivers plugged in, the extra 8 inputs that you would have become outputs from the receiver. So if you wanted to feed that receiver to an extra recorder, you know, that, you know, or you wanted to feed it to someone else for whatever reason, you actually have all that I/O sitting there in the back of the machine. So those are 2 major upgrades to the machine. We also made some changes in the mic preamps, little improvement there, very little improvement. The old ones were really good. But even more importantly, the box draws a little less power than it used to as well. I mean, current draw on Nova 2 is about 600, 700 milliamps, and that's without the receivers. The receivers are about 300 each. So between the receivers and the Nova 2, you're somewhere around 1,200 to 1,300 milliamps, which is just astonishingly low, again, for, you know, 8 receivers and the recorder altogether.
So Glenn, thanks for bringing this by today. Is there anything else you want to share about the ecosystem that we set up?
No, I think that about covers it. I just want to thank you and everyone at Gotham for hosting today. I mean, it's always good to be here to inform everyone of what we're doing and, you know, the progress we're making to, you know, make things better for sound mixers.
Great. Brian, anything from you? Okay, fantastic. Well, I just want to, again, thank you for stopping by. I'll put these down, but I just want to, again, pick this up so I can get my reps in. For this video and more, you can watch us on gothamsound.tv. You can always follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And as always, if you have any questions, please email us at info@gothamsound.com. Thanks for watching.